The Bruins, the favorite at home as an unranked team against the top 15. How's that going to work for UCLA? Let's knock it out on Locked On UCLA.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer with you guys as we bring you the keys to the game between the Bruins and Wazoo. Might be a make it or break it game. For right now, this is where the Bruins season looks to make that good or bad decision if the Bruins can get a big win against the Rose Bowl. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer with you guys. Thanks for making this your first listen each and every day. It's free where we get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. So like, comment, and subscribe. And be coming every day. We've been talking about this matchup all week. Throwback Thursday was some fun. Mick Cronin started a lot of funny quotes this week. You're going to want to be tuned in for the rest of October, the rest of November, and continue to hit that subscribe button. So thanks for your support. This episode's brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. The Bruins, in what expects to be a toasty afternoon in the Rose Bowl, on October 7th against Washington State, a top 15, 13, 16, whatever ranking you want to use. The Cougars come in unbeaten, just like the Bruins off a bye, UCLA 3-1 unranked after losing to Utah. And this is where UCLA can come and do exactly what Oregon State did, right, to Utah, coming off a big victory while they were coming off a loss and knock them off. Can UCLA do the same thing a couple weeks later where Washington State came off a big win, both teams have a bye, UCLA lost? Can the Bruins, with this being a home game, come through and knock off the Cougars in what will be a much tougher game for UCLA than it was for Oregon State at home versus Utah? 3.5 points at home. We'll talk about prediction time. That's a fairly generous line for UCLA against a Washington State team that hasn't shown any signs of slowing down. They were able to take it to it early to Oregon State, and yet here they are 4-0 as they had to hold on late against the Beavers. What are my keys to the game for UCLA to win this game against the Cougars? I know UCLA, the defenses look good this year. This is a prove-it game, an absolute prove-it game to show, hey, all these numbers, which you can go get Dante Moore, all these extra contract incentives when the season's over, is it because of the schedule or is it because the Bruins defense is good? This is that test. This is maybe that midterm for UCLA to prove it that they're actually good. Will we actually know? Well, we'll know after they play Cam Moore. So let's take a look at these keys to the game. First key to the game, if you're looking on YouTube, you can see the graphic with Dante Moore on there. If you're listening, here's key number one, QB pressure. What does QB pressure look like? We know what it looks like. They've got Leao Chulachi. They've got Gary Smith. They've got the Murphy twins. They've got a lot of players who can get in the backfield. Maybe it's from the linebacking core. Cam Madrano came in, had some big plays against Utah. Maybe it's Wassau who makes big plays. Maybe John Vaughn steps up. Oladejo. There's many different guys who can play for UCLA, whether it's up front. Maybe the Bruins bring some pressure, gambling in certain situations against Cam Ward to give him less time, less room to scramble. QB pressure will be number one. It's not like Ward hasn't faced pressure. Against Wisconsin, the Badgers brought him down 3 times and slowly crept back in after trailing big early. And it was the Cougars had to pull away late, winning by 9 points against the Wisconsin Badgers at home. So it all starts with QB pressure and maybe something that I didn't put there, QB pressure and containment. Because Ward's ability to be mobile, to make the play extend, while this team doesn't rush the ball that much, they can rely on Ward's ability to scramble a little bit as one of the top 2 rushers on his team. So while he's not going to go put up 100 yards rushing, you hope not, and while Washington State nearly ranks in the top 100, they're 98th in the country in rushing offense, that's not something the Bruins are going to probably have to deal with, despite being statistically one of the better running defenses in the country, and it looks like it through their first 4 games. I'm not sure that's even a factor. It's up to the secondary to hold up if the QB pressure doesn't get there. Because UCLA needs to get Cam Ward into some dicey situations, get them into 2nd, 3rd, and long, because the Cougars, they sit there as one of the best. They are the best team in the country coming into this game at converting on 3rd downs. If that pressure doesn't get there, there might not be many third downs because they can get first downs, move the chains, or they'll convert first downs. They're converting third downs nearly 60% of the time, an absurd clip this early in the season for the Cougars, who have been somewhat battle-tested against some what we would expect to be decent, solid defenses that they've faced so far this season. UCLA, get that pressure, lead it with Latu. You need at least 3 to 4 sacks in this game. Get pressure, tackles for loss, whatever it takes to bring Ward down and not let him get outside the pocket and make things happen in the blink of an eye that's not expected to happen. Key number 2, be ball hawks. What does that mean? What does that mean? Cam Ward hasn't thrown a single interception this year. Can the Bruins get to Ward, make him make a mistake? That's where keys 1 and 2 can go hand in hand. You get pressure, you force third and long, you get him rolling out or hit him while he's throwing. That gives your secondary an opportunity to make plays. Maybe it's a Jalen Davies. Maybe it's something that a linebacker sits, spying the quarterback and reads the play, jumps in front of a hot route in an underneath pattern during a second and long or a third and long when they try to go, whatever it may be. Can the Bruins get a turnover? They forced one in at least each of the first 4 games. The Utah game was the only time the Bruins have not gotten an interception. While they did force a fumble, it had 3 cracks at recovering a fumble that could have changed the game. You want to get an interception. Shatter and rattle the confidence of Cam Ward. He truly hasn't had to deal with those situations. It's one thing to get him off the field, but you force a turnover and do something, get that defense fired up like they have been, lead the offense into a good scoring opportunity. I know you can't basically score and lead them to victory like Utah did against the Bruins in week 4 of the season. This is an opportunity where a lot of this is on the defense. It's the Wazoo offense versus the UCLA defense. And then there's one key thing we'll talk about at the end between the Wazoo defense and the UCLA offense, which I think is fairly obvious. Key 1 and 2, they go hand in hand with one another. The Bruins have to get pressure, and that can lead to possible careless football by Cam Ward, which he hasn't done so far. The Bruins need to make that happen in week 6. If this doesn't happen, I'm not sure. If either of those things don't happen, I don't know what happens. If the Bruins can get QB pressure, they can live without an interception, unless they're getting beat deep on third and long or it's a big play score. That could be a game-changing moment. Get pressure on the quarterback, force a turnover. If there's a loose ball on the ground, pick it up on the goal line, like Nate Johnson had dropped quite a few against UCLA, and the Bruins couldn't get the ball to bounce their way. Now we move on to the third key in this game. What could that be, you say? What could that look like? Well, if you're looking on YouTube, here it is. Protect Dante. Protect Dante. Washington State is not a defense that is similar to Utah. It's just not. Even if they're good, even if they're getting stops, it is not as ferocious in my mind as Utah's. So with the sack numbers, if the lack of a run game, if Dante Moore has hit the turf, hit the grass in the Rose Bowl more times than not in this game, even if he's not officially being sacked, if he has to scramble and make plays out of nowhere 90% of the time, that's an absurd number. Yes, that's how it felt like against Utah. Every play, there was no time. Maybe he was missing routes, missing reads. It didn't matter. It felt like the Bruins had no chance to throw the ball down the field unless they had maximum protection against the Utes. If the Cougars, not that their defense is porous by any means, but if they have the same similar type of success teeing off on Dante Moore, remember, the Bruins got sacked 7 times, 3 of the final 4 offensive plays. That's our last memory. Sack, completion, sack. And the completion happened because Utah was sitting back on 3rd and 1,000,000, and 4th down just laid the hammer on Dante Moore when he had no chance to get the ball off and the game was over. 11 tackles for loss leads into how does the Bruins rushing attack work against the Cougars defense? The Bruins statistically still run for over almost 200 yards a game. That wasn't really the case against Utah. Can the Bruins do something much better against Washington State? I believe that to be the case. You just got to go out there and execute and keep Dante Moore upright. What was changed and fixed in the offensive line? Is it a play calling thing? Is it max protection and you need to get more out of your receivers on the outside with limited routes? Is it change things? Can Dante Moore get more read plays that he actually runs with the ball? Maybe you get Colin Schlee in the game and mix things up for one series or a couple of plays to get a rushing QB in there just to keep the defense on their toes. It all comes down to giving Dante Moore time to throw, because if he does, then he will probably do some better things than that. He could easily make a mistake and have some bad picks, whatever it may be, but you got to get him the opportunity to throw the ball down the field, make a read, as opposed to letting him get teed off on like he was in that Utah game. That is not going to be a recipe for success. So again, 3 keys for UCLA victory. Pressure Wazoo's QB, Cam Ward. Consistently, Latu is being ranked, whatever site, whether it's Pro Football Focus, whether it's on 3. He's one of the top edge rushers in the country, even though his numbers don't look like it right now because he did nothing against NC Central because he didn't have to. And the rest of the Bruins picked up the slack against Utah. So it's a Latu coming out party again as he tries, and the rest of the Bruins D-line, to get to Ward. So QB pressure. Be ball hawks. The secondary, sometimes much maligned in week 1 versus Coastal Carolina's Grayson McCall. Make some plays, get some stops. Be a ball hawk. Get the loose ball on the ground, get a pick, knock out of the receiver's hands, do whatever it takes. And number 3, protect Dante. That's it. Do those 3 things, and UCLA is going to win the game. Easier said than done, but that's all it comes down to. You can look at numbers, statistics, third downs. Third downs will be a key thing to look at in this game. But if you're getting pressure and making turnovers happen or forcing things to happen, then it's going to lead to a UCLA victory. Now, execution is another thing. Do I think they'll execute? We'll talk about that next on Locked On UCLA. These days, every potential new hire feels like a high-stakes wager for your small business. Whether it's recruiting or trying to find people who are perfect for your small business, LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can use screening questions to make it easier to focus on candidates with the right skills and experience so that you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. Small businesses rank LinkedIn Jobs number 1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find those qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Cruising on into segment 2 of the Locked On UCLA podcast, somewhat of a shorter episode, if you will, in this one. Can the Bruins, as favorites, betting favorites at home, come through and get the job done against Wazoo? Off a bye, the Bruins haven't been historically good with Chip Kelly at the helm, coming off a bye, 2-4, I believe. What's going to be any different for both teams coming off a bye, where UCLA, desperate for a win, Washington State, desperate for attention. You see Jake Dickert arguing with Lee Corso, just like what you had Ryan Day yelling at, Lou Holtz a few weeks ago. Yeah, people yelling at game day hosts and everything. Washington State just wants some credibility in the 2-pack, the Pac-2, as the Pac-12 slowly disintegrates. They want to prove they can get some big conference money, even though they might be rumored to go to different places. They want to make a statement with this being a midday game, even though it's on national television, a 5-0 start, and all of a sudden, that's the Cougars doing some big things. The Bruins, a win in this game, you do some big things. You're not in the thick of it in the Pac-12 race right away, but that gives you a step closer to having a very successful season and still having a shot at a 10-win year in the regular season, if not with a bowl game, if you win this game. You lose this game, then it's not necessarily the season's done. It's not. It's growing pains leading into the Big Ten as opposed to competing and challenging for the last ever Pac-12 crown as we know it. Prediction time. The Bruins, 3.5-point favorites. You go look at FanDuel, that's where the Bruins are being laid favorites everywhere. Bruins are the favorites. So what does that mean going in? And that's where the line I have at this moment looks like. It could change, could shift based on when you listen and watch. Are the Bruins going to be able to do it in my mind? Here's what I think my final score prediction is. Feel free to get a little cray-cray. All right, my mind, I think UCLA wins this game. Ooh, wow, goodness. Forgot to put Wazoo up there, but 35-31. Well, a little late there, but 35-31. I think the Bruins put on some points. I think they knock off the Cougars. And hold on. Heck, we were on College Football Live, the kickoff live, the show that we have here, the Locked On Network. Saw me probably put up some reasons why I think the Bruins can do it. I do think they can get to Cam Ward. I'm not sure Washington State's defense is as good as Utah's. Duh, Zach, that's a simple statement. It just is not. UCLA has a defense that's eager to prove. Washington State has a program that's eager to prove. I think Chip Kelly can make enough adjustments to get the job done. I know Washington State's a good football team. I think the Bruins, remember, this isn't necessarily a key to the game, and every team's going to have to deal with this. Chip Kelly raved in the offseason about how good his team's strength and conditioning was, how good it was, how healthy they were, and now they are coming into week 6. And what's going to be a toasty game, the first 90-plus degree day in the Rose Bowl. We didn't get that against SC Central. We had a much cooler day in a night game against Coastal Carolina. It wasn't that crazy against San Diego State. And Salt Lake City's its different beast. The Bruins defense came in and got stronger as the game went on against Utah. Now you face the Cougars coming from Pullman. Can UCLA take advantage of a late meltdown by Wazoo? If UCLA in this game can find a way to stay out from behind early, if the Cougars jump ahead early, then this prediction might be a little off. I think the Bruins can be within 7-7, maybe 14-7 after the first quarter. They turn it on in the second quarter. They can run the ball a little bit more successfully, a little play-action bomb from Dante Moore to whomever. Maybe J. Michael Sturdivant has a big game in this one, 100 yards and a couple of touchdowns. I think the Bruins can score points. Wazoo will get stuffed once. The Bruins will get pressure. And yes, it looks like they get a lot of points, but maybe that comes late in the game, right? Remember that UCLA-Washington game last year was 40-32, but they were able to stymie Michael Penix Jr. for a while. A little bit different teams, different styles here, different year, different defensive coordinator. I do think if the Bruins can race out in front, get a lead by the time halftime comes, and later in the game, it might be Washington State playing catch-up, which they just haven't had to do. They've been jumping out to early leads. Get Wazoo playing from behind, and then all of a sudden they might have to play with something they haven't done with all year, a deficit late in the game. Do that, and I think UCLA can get a win 35-31. FanDuel, the Bruins, hey, they're favorites. Unranked at home versus a top 15 unbeaten team in the country in the Rose Bowl, which I'm not sure how filled it'll be, but it'll be something to look forward to in a day full of busy Southern California sports. A beautiful day, just a warm day, and maybe the Cougars might melt, wither under the heat, the pressure. Not saying that they will. I just think the Bruins can hold them off just enough and get the job done. Hit the comments if you think this is correct, wrong, everything in between. And hey, FanDuel, you should go snap into the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. It's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, right now there's no better time to get in on the action. App is super easy to use. You can do spreads, props, over-unders. Hey, hit the points. UCLA minus 3.5. Hit it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. So I'm Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer signing things off. Just a couple of segments here today. Keys, protect Dante, pressure, turnover, all those things. The Bruins can be in line for victory. It'll be a hard-fought, scrappy battle. It won't be 67-63. At least I don't think so. But it could be an entertaining football game. 35-31 is my thought. A wild one. We'll see. Is this the Washington State's first test against a good defense, or does the Bruins defense crumble? I'd like to believe in the Bruins defense, but they've got to ace the test, and we won't find out the answer until pretty soon. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer signing off. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight, fight, fights. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.